Have you ever stared at your phone, waiting for a message that never came? Checked your bank account, hoping for a miracle, only to feel that familiar pang of disappointment? It's in those quiet, haunting moments that the mind starts whispering, "What did I do wrong? Why isn't it working?" This is where most people give up. Not because their manifestation isn't working, but because they've misunderstood the silence. Neville Goddard taught us a radical truth. There are no delays. What you call a delay is not a punishment. It's not a failure. It is the exact evidence that your desire has already been accepted by the infinite imagination. Let that sink in. You think nothing is happening, but in the unseen, something is moving. A bridge is being built, what Neville called the bridge of incidents, a series of perfectly orchestrated events that are silently aligning to fulfill your assumption. The tragedy? Most people interrupt this bridge. They destroy it mid-construction because they misinterpret the stillness as failure. They say, "I've been imagining, I've been affirming, I've been scripting, and still nothing." But what they don't realize is, they are creating. They're just not trusting. They're not holding the state, they're checking for signs. Neville once said, "The moment you feel the wish fulfilled, you're creating. Not when you see the results, but the moment you feel it." The world out there is only an echo. It reflects your inner world with mathematical precision. So when you panic, when you search, when you doubt, you're not responding to reality. You're creating a new one, based on fear. And here's the truth no one wants to hear. The need to see proof is the very thing that delays it. Because the moment you seek evidence, you confess, "I don't believe it's done." This is the silent trap. You do everything right, but underneath, you still occupy the state of waiting. And waiting is not the same as receiving. Waiting says, "It's not here yet." And so reality echoes, "It's not here yet." You are not being ignored. You are not being tested. You are being shown one of the deepest spiritual laws Neville ever revealed. Assumption, when persisted in, will harden into fact. But the assumption must live within you, not as a technique, not as a hope, but as an identity. So the question becomes not "where is it?" but "who am I being?" Because the answer to that question is what you will live next. Everything changes the moment you realize that your manifestation isn't something that will happen. It's something that is happening. Right now. In ways you cannot see, in forms your logical mind can't yet comprehend. The entire structure of reality is reshaping itself around your inner state. This is not fantasy. This is law. Neville Goddard called it the law of assumption. What you assume to be true becomes true, not eventually, but immediately in consciousness and inevitably in form. But the form takes time to reflect the assumption, not because reality is slow, but because you are learning to remain faithful. What you perceive as a delay is actually the recalibration of your world to match the vibration of your inner self. And here lies the paradox. The more you trust without seeing, the faster it comes. Because trust is not passive. Trust is power. It signals to the universe that you no longer live in the vibration of lack. You live in the end. Neville said it simply. The world is yourself pushed out. That means there's no outside force granting or withholding anything. Every rejection, every silence, every no is part of a divine choreography, designed not to punish you, but to align you. To strip away your disbelief. To burn away everything in you that contradicts your desire. Think about it. If you truly believed it was yours, how would you respond to a closed door? You wouldn't crumble. You'd walk around it, or wait calmly for the one that opens, knowing with absolute conviction that it leads exactly where you intended. But most people don't do that. They look at the door, they assume it's locked forever, and worse, they stop walking. They abandon the state. They forget what Neville called living in the end. That is, becoming the version of you who already has it. Thinking like them, feeling like them, acting like them, even when nothing outside has changed. Because here's the truth, you don't get what you want. You get who you are. So if you're still waiting, ask yourself, are you really waiting, or are you wavering? Because the bridge is already building. The moment you assumed it, the journey began. But you can't see the workers. You can't hear the hammers. And so your mind assumes nothing is happening. But something is. Someone is making a decision right now, in another city, another room, that will affect your path. Someone is thinking about calling you. An opportunity is circling unseen. And the only thing that can block it is you stepping out of state to double check if it's working. Let go of the how. Let go of the when. Let go of the constant need to verify. Because you don't verify the seed after planting it. You water it. You trust the sun. And the bloom is inevitable. So stop questioning the silence. Start honoring it. Because in Neville Goddard's world, the silence is not the absence of movement. It is the sound of God rearranging the stars on your behalf. This is where most people fall off the bridge. They feel the shift, but then question it. They sense the change, but instead of allowing it to unfold, they try to force it into shape. And the moment you interfere, you're no longer in the state of the wish fulfilled. You've stepped into a state of fear, control, and resistance. Neville Goddard warned us, you do not need to build the bridge, you only need to walk it. But walking the bridge requires one thing most people struggle with, non-interference. It's tempting, isn't it? To try and help the manifestation along. To send that extra message, apply to that random job, chase the person who ghosted you, or tweak your plan just to speed things up. But what you don't see is that every time you do that, you're declaring to your subconscious, this isn't working, so I must act from fear. And fear is not the state that creates. Fear delays. Doubt derails. Here's what we forget. The bridge of incidents, as Neville described it, is a path the universe constructs without your conscious effort. It's a perfect orchestration of events that you could never logically arrange on your own. Some of it will look confusing. Some of it may even seem like a step backward. But if you remain faithful to the end, you will discover nothing was random. Let's be honest. You've probably tried to rush your manifestations before. And what happened? You took action out of desperation. You made choices that felt heavy. You chased outcomes instead of letting them come to you. And instead of receiving, you created more waiting, more anxiety, more resistance. Why? Because your inner world was screaming, I don't have it yet. And the universe, ever faithful to your assumptions, said, as you wish. Neville Goddard made it clear. Imagination is the only reality. That means everything outside of you is merely a reflection, a shadow. When you imagine something clearly and persist in the feeling of its reality, the world has no choice but to respond. But here's the key. You must not disturb the soil. If you've assumed wealth, stop worrying about how it will come. Stop panicking over bills. Live from the knowing that abundance is already your identity. If you've assumed love, stop chasing unavailable people. Let go of those not aligned with your new state. Love doesn't require pursuit. It requires embodiment. Do you understand the depth of this? The bridge doesn't need your micromanagement. It needs your trust. You are not the architect. You are the traveler. Your only role is to stay in character, to remain the version of you who already has what you desire. Because once you imagine something is real, it is planted in the quantum field. Events begin aligning. People start moving. Paths open and doors close, not to block you but to guide you. So if a door shuts, let it. If someone walks away, let them. If an opportunity vanishes, trust, it was never meant for the version of you who already has what you want. Neville didn't say you need to figure it out. He said you need to live in the end. Let reality catch up. Let the bridge unfold. And when it does, it will seem miraculous, because it will have arrived not through effort, but alignment. And that is the real magic. Persistence. Most people misunderstand this word. They think it means repetition, doing more affirmations, visualizing longer, writing another page of scripting. But Neville Goddard shattered that illusion. He said true persistence is not in the doing, but in the being. It's not how many times you speak the words, it's how completely you inhabit the feeling. You could repeat, I am wealthy 100 times a day, but if deep down you still feel unworthy, still check your bank account in anxiety, still hesitate to treat yourself well, then you're persisting in the state of lack, not abundance, because your state, not your words, is what creates. This is the hard truth. You are always persisting in something. The question is, what are you persisting in? Are you dwelling in doubt, even while pretending to have faith? Are you rehearsing worst-case scenarios in your mind, while trying to mask it with forced positivity? That is still a form of creation. As Neville said, your assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That means even your unconscious fears, if allowed to live long enough, will shape into form. So persistence is not about pressure. It's not about effort. It's about identity. If you want to manifest love, you must be love, not need love, not search for it, not wait for someone to bring it. Be it. Walk like it. Speak like someone who is deeply cherished, already chosen. Not because you're faking it, but because you've chosen to occupy that state until it becomes your home. If you want success, don't chase outcomes. Embody the version of you who has already succeeded. The one who makes decisions from confidence, not fear. The one who doesn't panic over the outcome, because the outcome is already assumed. Here's what most people do. They jump between states. They imagine in the morning, doubt in the afternoon, panic at night. Then they wonder why nothing changes. It's not the universe that's inconsistent, it's their assumption. Persistence is about holding the inner frequency of your desire, regardless of what the outer world is showing you. That means when nothing is changing, you still hold the state. When it looks worse, you still hold the state. When everyone doubts you, you still hold the state. Not because you're ignoring reality, but because you understand that outer reality is delayed reflection. Neville often said, feeling is the secret. Not the feeling of hoping, not the feeling of wanting, but the sacred stillness of knowing. When you know it is done, you don't grasp. You don't chase. You don't check. You rest. You walk the bridge without fear, because you are no longer trying to become. You already are. So the question is not, how long should I persist? The real question is, how deeply can I dwell in the state, even when nothing seems to support it? Because when you learn to hold the end, the middle has no choice but to bend. What if delays were never delays at all, but divine precision in disguise? What if every so-called setback, every detour, every heartbreak was actually a step forward, just hidden in the folds of time? Neville Goddard taught us something few ever dare to believe. Everything that happens is part of the fulfillment of your desire. Yes, everything. We're taught to fear time. We're conditioned to believe that if it's not here yet, something's wrong. That if we don't see evidence, it means we're failing. But that belief is not neutral, it's destructive. It keeps you looping in a state of almost. But Neville was clear. There is no almost in imagination. You're either dwelling in the end, or you're not. And here's the radical shift. What if you stopped fearing time? What if you saw time not as distance between you and your desire, but as the sacred unfolding of a bridge that is already carrying you? When you say this is taking too long, what you're really saying is, I don't trust the process. And when you don't trust, you step out of the state. You fall back into doubt, into force, into chasing, and you delay the very thing that was coming your way. But when you see delays as part of the plan, when you believe that every no is a disguised yes, when you trust that detours are intelligent redirections, you step into power. Not the power to control, but the power to allow. Neville reminded us, everything moves according to a pattern. Even what looks random, even what looks chaotic, the missed flight, the broken relationship, the job you didn't get. It's all part of a larger intelligence responding to your assumption. So instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Ask, how is this happening for me? Because when you hold the end, the middle will shape itself, even if the path twists in ways you didn't expect. Look back at your life. Remember the doors that closed, only to reveal a better one. Recall the moments that felt like endings, but were actually beginnings. Think about the person you thought you lost forever, the opportunity you thought slipped away, and how somehow life rerouted itself to give you something even greater. That's the bridge at work. So stop measuring time. Start measuring trust. If you knew it was guaranteed, if you knew your manifestation was inevitable, how would you feel right now? Would you be anxious, or would you be at peace? Would you rush, or would you rest? Because that's the state. That's the secret. Neville Goddard's entire philosophy rests on this. Live in the end. Occupy the state. And let the world rearrange itself around you. So if nothing is happening, everything is happening. Right now, behind the scenes, your world is bending. People are making decisions that will lead to your breakthrough. Circumstances are adjusting in your favor. What looks like silence is actually a storm of synchronicity preparing to deliver your desire. But the bridge only finishes for those who keep walking. So walk, not with fear, with faith, with presence, with the knowing that there is no delay, only divine timing unfolding with perfect rhythm. Your reality is not behind. It is right on time.